What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be comparing the OnePlus Nord N20 5G to the OnePlus Nord N200 5G. Now, in case you don't know, the OnePlus Nord N20 5G is the successor to the OnePlus Nord N10 5G, and the OnePlus Nord N200 5G is the successor to the OnePlus Nord N100. So even though these phones are not from the exact same product line, they definitely do have quite a bit in common. So in this video, we're going to be going over all that to help you decide which one is the best choice for you. Now, before we go any further, as always, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to learn more about either of these phones individually, I will be linking to several other videos about them in the description, as well as some information about pricing and availability. But with that being said, let's get started. So with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, we're getting a 6.43-inch AMOLED display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 409, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and an 85.3% screen-to-body ratio. With the OnePlus Nord N200 5G, we're getting a 6.49-inch 90Hz IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 405, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 83.7%. So as you can see here, despite having some differences, these displays are actually pretty similar. Both of them have 1080p resolution, so we're going to get nice crisp images here. They're also about the same size, and in general, I would say both of them look really good. But the main differences here is that, first of all, with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, we are getting an AMOLED display versus an IPS LCD display with the OnePlus Nord N200 5G. And I would say in general, AMOLED is definitely a superior display technology. It's going to give us better looking colors and better brightness overall, and the N20 5G is going to have much better viewing angles, so if you're outside in the sun, for example, the N20 5G will be a lot easier to see. On the other hand, the N200 5G does have a 90Hz refresh rate, whereas the N20 5G only has a standard 60Hz display. And this is going to make the movement on the screen with the N200 5G a little bit faster and smoother, so if you're watching videos, playing games, something like that, you are going to get a slightly better experience, and when you're just navigating through the phone in general, it will feel a little bit more premium. But that being said, when it comes to the refresh rate, the difference really isn't that huge, whereas with the AMOLED display, you're going to get a much better experience overall. So I would say, as far as the display goes, despite both phones being really good, the OnePlus Nord N20 5G definitely has an edge with the AMOLED display. Now for storage, with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, we're getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and the N200 5G is getting 64GB with microSD card expansion as well. So both phones are going to be pretty decent for the average user. Even with 64GB, if you're not really doing a whole lot with your phone, you should probably at least be able to get by. But clearly here, the OnePlus Nord N20 5G does have an advantage with double the storage of the N200 5G. So if you're more of a power user, if you have a bunch of photos and videos, apps, that kind of thing, in that case, the OnePlus Nord N20 5G will definitely be a better choice. But then again, if you're more of a casual user and you only really have a couple apps, then the N200 5G with 64GB will be perfectly fine. And remember, both phones also do have microSD card expansion, and that's great for offloading stuff like photos and videos. Now for security features, both phones do have fingerprint scanners. With the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, it's right here on the display. And with the OnePlus Nord N200 5G, it's right here on the power key. So definitely both real good spots, and keep in mind both phones also do have Face Unlock. But starting with the N20 5G, let's give these fingerprint scanners a try and see how well they work. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And moving on to the N200 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, both fingerprint scanners are real fast and responsive, no issues whatsoever. And remember, both phones have Face Unlock as well, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, we got a nice looking hole punch design for the front facing camera, and this camera is 16 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 64 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. With the OnePlus Nord N200 5G, we got pretty much the same design for the front facing camera, and this camera is 16 megapixels as well. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 13 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So in general, the features are pretty much the same on these two phones. Both of them have pretty much everything except an ultra-wide camera, unfortunately, which is really too bad with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, because I believe the N10 5G did have an ultra-wide camera, so I'm not sure why they took that feature away. But in general, I would say these phones do take pretty good photos, maybe not as good as a higher-end device, but overall, for more casual use, I would say these phones will both get the job done. But between the two, I would definitely say the OnePlus Nord N20 5G does have an advantage, and the photos from this phone are going to be quite a bit higher quality. And for video, same kind of thing. Both of them do have pretty good quality, but the OnePlus Nord N25G is going to be quite a bit better. And keep in mind, when it comes to video, both of these phones have a max resolution of 1080p at 30 frames per second in both the rear and front cameras, so no 4K unfortunately, but again, the video quality itself really isn't bad. Now as far as RAM and processor go, with the OnePlus Nord N25G we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 5G processor. With the OnePlus Nord N200 5G, we're getting 4GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 480 5G processor. Now I ran Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both of these phones, and with the OnePlus Nord N25G we're getting a single core score of 683 and a multi-core score of 1972, and with the OnePlus Nord N200 5G we're getting a single core score of 510 and a multi-core score of 1600. So as you can see here, clearly the OnePlus Nord N25G is the faster of the two, and I will say from experience, the performance on this phone is quite a bit better, especially if you're doing something like mobile gaming for example. Things are going to run a lot smoother. But at the same time, for more basic activities like web browsing, social media, stuff like that, the N200 5G will still be perfectly fine. And despite not being as fast as the N25G, it's still not a slow phone by any means. Now as far as the battery goes, with the OnePlus Nord N25G we're getting a 4500 mAh battery that supports 33 watt fast charging, and with the OnePlus Nord N200 5G we got a 5000 mAh battery that supports 18 watt fast charging. So between the two, both phones do have really good batteries, but they do have slightly different advantages. On one hand, the OnePlus Nord N25G has significantly better fast charging, but on the other hand, the OnePlus Nord N200 5G has a larger battery. Now I feel like for most people, having a larger battery is going to be a better advantage than having better fast charging, but it's really going to be up to you. Of course, if you want better fast charging, the OnePlus Nord N25G is going to be a better choice, but if you want a larger battery, then the OnePlus Nord N200 5G is going to have an advantage. But at the end of the day, despite their slight differences, both phones do have great battery performance, and even down the road as far as longevity goes, I do think both phones will last quite a while. Another cool thing about these phones is that both of them do have NFC, so if you like to make contactless mobile payments using tap and pay, then you'll be happy to know that either of them can do that just fine. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, I would say the OnePlus Nord N25G is the better device here, and that's really not a surprise at all because this phone is technically a step up from the OnePlus Nord N200 5G. But that being said, the N200 5G does have a couple advantages. First of all, with the 90Hz refresh rate, it is going to make the movement on the screen again a little bit faster and smoother. You probably can't tell in this video, but when you're actually using the phone, you will notice it. And if you're consuming a lot of content like streaming videos, playing games, that kind of thing is going to look really nice on this phone. In addition to this, again, this phone does have a larger battery, so if you want the phone between the two that's going to have the most battery life per charge, again, the OnePlus Nord N200 5G will have an advantage. But on the other hand, if you want the best performance, best camera, and the best display quality, the OnePlus Nord N25G is definitely going to be a better choice. But overall, despite their differences, these are two great phones from OnePlus that provide quite a bit of value for the money, and if you're looking for a solid mid-range phone, you're not going to go wrong with either of them. Now once again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, I will be linking to several other videos about them in the description, as well as some information about pricing and availability, because this is always changing. But this concludes my comparison between the OnePlus Nord N25G and the OnePlus Nord N200 5G. If you enjoyed the video and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipus Tech on Twitter and Instagram, and as always, I will see you in the next video.